Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dan McGrew. I'm today here with Rob Ianni, and welcome to another episode of DX iT2 Talks, all things digital transformation in SAP. So very, very excited today to have Rob Ianni with me. I've known Rob for several years, and I'm always very pleased and excited to talk to Rob. Rob, tell us a little bit about your background and what you're up to.
Sure thing, Dan. Good to see you. A little bit about my background is my background really has been my whole adult life. I've been involved in technology, sales, and sales leadership with over 20 years, the last 20 years in sales, various sales leadership positions with companies such as IBM, Oracle, most recently with SAP, and as well as a few startup companies. So I like to tell people it's kind of technology sales to the enterprise is kind of really the only thing I really know.
Well, fantastic. I know we met as you were a VP at SAP, and one of the things that I always enjoyed doing was listening to you talk about the reasons that companies should or shouldn't make certain decisions with technology, and specifically about SAP. Talk a little bit about, there's a lot of customers out there today that are on ECC, and I believe the deadline is sometime in 27. What is your opinion, other than they're going to have to, but what is your opinion about them moving to the cloud, either a public cloud, private cloud? When you've talked to these folks in the past, other than they have to, what's your opinion of why they need to?
Well, a lot of times, when you talk to these companies, you understand that the technology that they're running on has been outdated, and it's outdated from the standpoint of it was very customized, and we've transformed in this industry from the point where we used to make the software fit the business process to we are developing the software with more automated business processes that they can turn on and go, right? And that's the biggest difference. So what would happen in these companies we go on and talk to, and even if it was an ECC customer or relatively a net new, they were stuck with visibility challenges and business process challenges that would not allow them to achieve their objectives, their business outcomes. And that, one of the things we would always do is we would get to the C-suite and we talk to the CFO and the CEO, COOs, and we'd say, look, tell me where you'd want better visibility, and where is visibility hurting you in achieving your business outcomes. And that was the one question where it would really spur on the customer to start to talk about where they needed more visibility and they in certain departments or certain business practices that they had no visibility or limited visibility that was truly impacting them to either grow the business or to be more efficient and improve operating margins. And that in and of itself was probably the biggest reason where companies would make the decision that they needed to upgrade their ERP. And again, it's a whole different world now where, there's apprehension in the marketplace as to old implementations that would take years. But it's not your father's SAP. These ERP systems now are much more flexible. They're quicker deployed, and they provide more out-of-the-box benefit immediately than what the old systems don't do. And, as a type of thing, I think, Dan, we would, being a long time in the technology business, the fact of the matter is, if you go back 20 years, if somebody implemented any type of system, they might be using 20 to 25% of them. And they would never upgrade. They would never grow. Well, that was another challenge, and that's how the industry has changed. The industry has really changed from the standpoint of, when you go to a cloud-based approach, either public or private, you can upgrade the vendor is upgrading you, SAP's upgrading you, and they're helping you grow with the system so you don't have an outdated system 5, 10, 15 years from now. And that is really what has changed in our industry.
How often do you find, Rob, where, today, just sort of you're talking about the out of the box, the implementation can be far less rigorous and not take as long, and they can be productive, much more quickly. How often have you seen that businesses today are more willing to adopt the way SAP does things versus, when I got into it back in the mid 90s, it was everything was customized, and they were like, we're not going to adopt what they're doing, we're going to do it our way and get the software to fit us. How
Right.
often do you see, or how often have you seen that people are more willing to do things the way that SAP designed them?
Well, I think they're very willing. Now there still is an essence of, hey, prove it to me, show me that, right? And that is part of the process, because nobody's just going to take for granted, hey, okay, you're telling me it's out of the box and it's going to be better than the process I have. So that is part of the learning process and the education process that is involved between the vendor and the customer. But they're once you get them over the hump and they see that that's possible, they are very willing to do that, because they know that's the way the system can grow with them, and that's the way they can continually take take advantage of the innovations and SAP brings to the market and brings to into the system every year, right? So they're very willing, once you get them over the education hump, to show them it's actually true.
That's great. One of the things that I was talking to a gentleman recently on one of these podcasts, that he talked about the change management that companies have to go through a lot of times is a real, it's debilitating. And because you have these lieutenants and C-level executives that may not be on the same page about, the right approach or whatever. I think you just said a key thing, which is a lot of it's based on, maybe misinformation or lack of education, but that's still a tall lift for people to have to go through when they have to go through the change management process. That's a big part of it, isn't it?
Yes. The two biggest pieces around success of any project of the size of an ERP implementation would be is number one is you have to have management involvement, right? And they have to be committed to it. And number two is that change management, right? So, because it's so big. Because look, we can talk all we want that it's SAP, you're going from one SAP system to another SAP system, ECC to public or private. But the reality is that's a change. And you have to manage that change. And the companies that are most successful in that process put change management in place. They also pick partners who can help manage that change for them. And that is the key to having a successful project.
I agree 100%. This is a question that someone say, do you really want to ask this question? But I respect your knowledge and your experience. Have you seen some failed implementations?
Absolutely. There are failed implementations, and I can tell you, look, and this isn't going to be a surprise, it's the scope creep issue, right? So most recently, I leave the company, will remain nameless, but as part of the sales process, the partner, and I was involved in this, we outlined kind of what would be the first phase, right? And this company had, C-level involvement and C-level direction. Well, the C-level was going, hey, if we're doing this, why don't we add this, this, and this? And that has happened now 2 or 3 times. And all it has done is delay the start date, because they continue to add to the project instead of taking what was core, what was most important to them initially, and get it up and running, and then do a phase 2, right? So I wouldn't say that the implementation has failed. The implementation has been delayed. And a lot of times people see delays as failure,
Sure.
right? And if I had a do-over with this customer, I think I would, and the partner kind of agrees to this, we would have told the CEO, no,
Yeah.
don't do that yet, right? But that's hard to do. That's hard to do, telling no, but you really have to, because you have to stick to what's important, what was set out in the beginning, and stick to it and stay to it and get up and running. If I think if that would have been the case, this customer would have been up and running in a total of about 8 months. Right now we're on, I think, month 18. Right. Now they're going to go live shortly. It's this summer at some point, but you gotta have the ability to say, no, this is what we focused on. This is what we talked about. This is what the original statement of work is. We're going to put it, this is what we're going to do. And that's not to say there won't be some change management in there and change orders and things like that. But you can't start adding completely new scope, right? Because it just defers the date, and really it delays your ROI, right? And if they would have already started seeing benefits from the system if they would have stuck to the phase 1 approach and then phase 2, phase 3. Now they're 9-10 months behind on where they start to see benefit from the system.
Really can't blame the software for that. The budget, I'm sure someone's going to be awfully upset, board members or whoever, but see that everywhere. It's not, sometimes though, I think that it's the lack of education on their side as to what they want in the beginning or what they're willing to sign off on, causes that to also can be a contributing factor to that. If we do a good job of educating them on everything that's applicable for them, that should help, shouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I like to call it the 3-pillar approach, Dan. 3-pillar approach to giving a customer what the end solution. And that is, if you take the time to ask a customer up front, hey, what do you do today that you like and you want to keep? Right? And you write that down. And then you say, what do you do today that you don't like and you want to change? You write that down. And then you say, look, in a perfect world, what do you not have today that you want? Right? I think if you break it down to that simple of a questioning line, afterwards, you'll be able to come back to the customer and go, this is what you want, isn't it? Right? And all you did was, it's the 3 pillars, because they know what they like about what they do, and they know what they hate about what they do.
That's right.
And then the hard part is, hey, give me that world of nirvana, that fantasy world of what's a perfect world for you. That's where you got to stretch and you got to reach and you got to drive them a little and work with them. But if you put those 3 pillars together, you can go back to them and go, this is what you want, isn't it? This is what you want it to look. Now, the key is too, sometimes it's okay for them to think beyond what you may be able to deliver, right? But that's okay. That's okay, because you can go, okay, how do we get there in the future, right? And as a partner, a service provider such as yourself, or the technology provider like us, you know what? You will help develop a business bond with these people to take them where maybe they never thought they'd be able to go. And I think that's key in every engagement.
I agree 100%. Education is really, really important. Helping them see. So SAP has been the strong Trojan horse that's been going down the path for many, many years, but most recently in the last several years, they've done a lot with their technology. I was just on a podcast with the lady from talking about all the cool things that AI and what they were talking about at Sapphire, which is really cool. But one of the things that you and I have talked about and is talking about rise and grow with SAP. One of my favorite lunches that we had was when you talked about, a company that could be at $50 million and their goal is to, grow several hundred million. And you talked about when the question was asked about technology and the need to change as they grow, are we going to outgrow this? I loved your response. And would you talk a little bit about what you think the benefits are of say grow with SAP if you've got a $50 million company, on that being a great solution for them?
Yeah. So the thing with grow with SAP, as far as growth, and I think this is one of the unique areas that SAP provides that maybe some in the rest of the industry don't. And that is SAP's gotten the platform such that you won't need to change, right? So let's take a company like, and let me back up. There was some disinformation out there in the industry about this, right? But if the competitors have small to mid-sized solutions, and then they have their large solutions. The beauty of Grow is a $50 million company can implement today, right? And let's say they grow to a $2 billion company over 10 years. They can use that same platform. The system is set up to grow with it. You'll grow with the company. You'll start to take advantage of more modules, right? As you grow, your business becomes more complex. You might add more functionality within the platform, but you'll never have to come off that platform. That isn't the case with the competition in the industry. Some of the people in the industry, the competition, they'll put you on their small to mid-market solution. You'll get to a point and you'll just outgrow it. And then they'll start to see, I have those visibility challenges. I have those business process challenges. That's not the case with SAP. SAP allows you to start on the platform, stay on the platform for however big you get.
That's significant, and that's a bit of a departure. I mean, I think when people look back in some of the early adopters of SAP, they were constantly having to do upgrades, and there was new service packs and this, and they got to the point where, every time they turn around, they've got to do something new. It's sort of a different concept here when you've got like, for example, the way that with the BTP and everything that's out there today. My recommendation to folks is certainly that from a health of your company and the health of your ability to grow, SAP is, as far as we know, a great solution for you based on all the various things that you can tap into. Do you agree?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And you bring up BTP, right? It's such a critical and important piece in the puzzle, right? Because we did talk about out of the box best practices, right? Go to market. But if we're going to be honest here, the reality is you're going to have some integrations, right? The software won't do everything for you. So whereas everything used to be customized, what the BTP platform brings to play is it brings a best-in-class platform for you to do that last 20%, that last mile, if you will. So you won't have, it's not seeing as what made those upgrades so hard in the past was that if you had customizations, you had to redo them, right? Put on a service pack, I got to redo these customizations. That's not the case today, right? Yeah, the service pack will go on, the processes will change, but the BTP is integrated and allows you to do some of that last 20% to give you the system you want, and then continue to grow from there.
So what do you think if you're advising a customer today that is, say, on ECC, and they're nervous as they can be about moving to the cloud, private or public, they're nervous. They know that in 27 support's going to stop. What do you tell them?
Well, it depends on what they're nervous about, right? So a couple things come up in this discussion generally. And one area is data, right? Hey, I don't want to have my data somewhere else. I have to keep my data here. Well, you go, okay, well, why, right? And there can be various reasons. So inevitably, it gets back to the second point, which is most important, is security, right? And they said, well, that might not be as secure. We don't have as much control. So the reality is, and this is what I say to them, great, let's compare our security on the cloud with your security here. Let's do a side by side. We'll get our security people in here. We'll get our cloud services people, the cloud architects. They'll talk to you about what we do as far as security, and you guys tell us if you do the same. And the reality is the cloud is more secure than a lot of these companies have today, and especially in the mid-market. In the mid-market, they don't have some of the resources that the large enterprise companies do, that have security departments that might be 100, 150 people. Right? They have one person, right? So, and I always tell them this story too, because I came out of the cybersecurity market before SAP did. And one of my customers once said, the only people that haven't had a breach are the people that don't realize it yet. So that time, and I say that to the folks that are concerned about your data being there because of the security, and they kind of laugh, but sure enough, they know that's probably true. So that is a hurdle to overcome, is that security. But the reality is, it's more secure in the cloud than it is at their location.
Hard to tell them that though, when the whole security team is adverse for whatever reason, and it's, I understand that piece.
Well, but here's the other thing too. It's not like, I think there's some misconceptions about the cloud too, right? Like, they're going to still control the, like role-based security, right? And they have control of who sees what in their internal world. And I think that's part of the education process is, look, it's not like you're giving up complete control. It's a data center. Okay? It's just like, and the reality is, a lot of these people no longer use their data centers. A lot of them are already in AWS or Azure, right? Or Google, right? So they're already in a cloud, if you will. But the reality is, what is it? It's a data center, right? It's a data center that provides a multi-tenant environment, and you still have control, just like if you had a server sitting down the room in a raised floor, or down the hall on a raised floor. So it's same concept, right? And I think once you talk them through that and just go to that basic logic, they overcome it. That's pretty easy to overcome.
What do you think the other reasons are, if it's not security, that people are resistant to move off ECC? Do you have any ideas on that?
I think the only folks that are resistant to move off of ECC are those those companies that don't realize that what the new platform will give them, right? So what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, none of these companies are going to move, Dan, unless, because you can talk to a CFO, COO, CIO. They're going to have to go to the CEO and subsequently the boards. And the question they're going to get asked is, what's this going to do for my top line or bottom line? That's the question. And the companies that don't see that, or don't go through the exercise to develop what that benefit is on top or bottom line, those are the companies that don't move.
Well, that's fantastic. Rob, I'll ask you one more question. I'm glad you said that. ask you one more question. Is there anything that you can think of, any advice that you would offer to any customer that's contemplating, I'm going to stick to the rise and growth, that they're contemplating that, but they've been on the fence for several months and can't quite pull the trigger? You have any advice for any of those folks, as well as SAP?
Yeah, my advice would be sit down and do the value analysis, right? At the end of the day, if you're on the fence, you're unsure of what the value is. And I would say, let's go back and let's really sit down and drive towards what this means to your business. Because I think subsequently people who are on the fence maybe are moving because, oh, I have to, not because they see value.
Choice.
And I would say spend a little time with the value. This could mean, millions, or in the case of one company, and this isn't an ECC to a S4 move in the cloud, but this was a by D move to S4 public. They saw that they would get 2 points improvement in their operating margins by the public cloud fixing some of their business processes that were hurting them. So 2 percentage points in their operating margins. And that was huge.
That's significant.
That was huge.
Yeah.
And it's that type of business analysis for people on the fence they need to do, because that CFO walking into the CEO going, hey, are you interested in getting 2 more points on margins this year? Well, yeah. Yeah, I'm interested. Well, that's the type of analysis that needs to be done. Because the reality is, if SAP and our partner network can't show that value and deliver that value, then they shouldn't move.
Yeah.
They shouldn't move, right?
Absolutely.
But I think in 99.9% of the time, that value is there.
Yeah.
If they'll let us show it to them.
And if they're open to being educated more than what they are today. So fantastic.
Absolutely.
Well, Rob, very much appreciate you joining us today. I usually don't say a word when we're having lunch because I love to listen to you talk. I really appreciate you doing this with us. Thank you, folks, for joining us. Thank you, Rob, Ianni, and another episode of iT2's DX Talks. And y'all have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.